Okay, cool. Hi everyone. I believe I must be audible to everybody. सब लोगों को आवाज आ रही है क्या मेरी? I guess we are live. Let me just quickly check for a moment. Let me just quickly see. Okay, yep. We looks like we are live. Looks like we are live. Let me just see if the sound and everything is fine. Okay, yeah, looks like we are fine. Looks like we are fine. So, hi everyone. Welcome to this new live YouTube live. We are doing after quite some time. I was traveling in between, so I thought, why not use this Sunday to have a very quick live stream altogether. And we're going to talk about a very interesting front end topic that is going to be advanced CSS selectors. We are going to see some really interesting and advanced use cases of CSS selector using a very interesting game that's available for everyone to just go and quickly play. CSS selectors are very important if you are actually going to use, or I would say, if you're actually going to work on some production code basis where you will find a lot of complex CSS selections being done here and there. So this is going to be something that we are going to talk about in this particular session. Throughout the session, if you have any questions, feel free to drop your questions in the chat. I would be happy to answer them. Before we just quickly move forward, I would like to talk about the brand new front-end course that we have launched on Algocamp. That's the Elite 2.0. We have made a lot of changes from the 1.0 versions, added some really interesting projects, including your own code sandbox ID with a relatively nicer UI, some machine coding interview problem solving, drag and drop websites like Wix and everything, map-based website. We have also added React Native, so on and so forth. So a lot of interesting things we have added. You can use this coupon code front end to get some massive discounts altogether on this particular new batch, right? Some really interesting projects we have added and some advanced concepts, including Next.js and everything we have already added. You can go through the curriculum altogether here, and this is going to be a live batch, so you do check it out. Okay, coming back. Let me know if you are able to chat here as well. When will your next advanced backend course will come? We are going to launch probably end of next quarter, most probably. Let's see. We'll notify you. Soumya, Vrita, Samantha. Okay. So let's start. So we know about a couple of things around CSS selectors, right? I believe if you're watching this particular part, you know about what are CSS selectors and why they are actually used. Okay. So CSS selectors help you to select a particular HTML element, and based on whatever selections you have made, it styles the corresponding element. Now, whatever selections you have made, based on that, the CSS OM is actually prepared, right? So you prepare the DOM, then you prepare the CSS OM. Based on DOM and CSS OM, you prepare the render tree, and then that render tree then goes to the later reflow stages and everything. Okay. So in the preparation of CSS OM, your selections and the CSS selector configurations play a extremely important role altogether, and that's what we are going to talk about. We are going to see some advanced CSS selectors altogether. Now, in order to learn CSS selectors, there is a very interesting game altogether. You can go to flukeout.github.io. This is a very interesting game, right? You can, I believe there must be some source code of the GitHub repo as well. So we can just quickly give the shout out to this Flukeout account. Okay, they have made this really nice game altogether, and you can go to this repo and make some contributions as well if you want. But this particular project can actually help you to understand CSS selectors step by step. It's a kind of like a 32 level game altogether, in which you can actually understand what are different type of selectors, and it takes from the very basic level to the advanced level. It's a free app that we can use. So we can just very quickly start. We can revise on the previous set of selectors that we have already done. So the first you can see on the level 1, we have a type selector, right? Type selector is very similar to your tag selector, right? Whenever you have something that you want to select with respect to your tags, right? So let's say you have the div tag, you have the p tag, you have the image tag, and you want to directly style them. That's where your I would say type selector comes into the picture. Okay, you can see it selects all the element of type A. type refers to the type of tag. That means either a div tag, either a p tag, either a ul tag, so on and so forth. Okay. So this is something that you have to keep in mind. So for example, what's the problem? The problem says that select the plates. Select the plates. Okay. Now, interestingly, here is the HTML viewer of the plates. You can see there are two plate tags that are technically present, and we need to select these two plates. We need to select both of these plates. And here you can see this is the part. This is the part where you can actually write your CSS selector. Now, how can we select both the plates? Now, both the plates are being represented in the form of the plate tag. So I'll just say plate here and I'll press enter. And you can see we are done. Level 1 is actually done. So that's your type selector or tag selector altogether. And you can see it creates variations on the corresponding selectors as well. For example, if you see there is type selector, select the element by their type. So select all the elements of type A. You can see a similar problem, just like level 1, we have the level 2 problem here as well. Right. It says select the bento boxes. Okay. Now, if you will carefully see, there are two bento tags and one plate tag. Okay. You can see this is the plate tag. This is the bento tag. We need to select the bento boxes. So bento boxes have got the bento tag. So we will say bento. If I press enter and we are through. So that's your type selector altogether. I hope that point makes sense. I hope that point makes sense. Ashutosh says, just finish your WebRTC lecture and it's the best. Thanks, Ashutosh. Thanks for the comment. Is the front end batch already started? Going to start soon? It's going to start, so you can still join if you want. Hey, Devil. Hello. How are you? How are you doing? Okay. So we can just quickly have some discussions. So the first selector is your tag selector. Okay. Your tag selectors. Tag selectors. We also call them as selector. We also call them as type selector. It helps us to select a particular tag of elements. It helps us to select a particular tag of elements altogether. For example, you can do something like this. You can say, let's say a div tag, and then you can write the corresponding styling here. Or you can do a p tag, and then you can write the corresponding styling here. This is kind of like the type selector that we have. Now, this is again a basic selector, so we are doing a quick revision. Okay. Now, level 3 of 32 is ID selector. Now, this is again a very simple one because in the HTML attributes, you have the ID attribute, right? So using the ID attribute, you can also select something. Now we have to select the fancy plate. Okay, you can see this one is a plain plate. This is a fancy plate. And the fancy plate has an ID fancy. And how do you do ID selections? You do a hashtag fancy. You write hashtag fancy and then you just press enter. And you can see we are through level 3 as well. So it's kind of like a very, I would say, simple application using which you can actually learn how to do CSS selections altogether. Okay. Cool. Now let's see the next one. Now the next one is the first advanced selector that we are going to see. The next one is the first advanced selector that we are going to actually see. Okay. This is called as the descendant selector. Now it's an important one. Descendant selector is technically an important one. Okay. And we can read the definition of descendant selector directly here. It selects an element inside other element. So when you say A space B, so that space that you have, that's your descendant selector. That means inside A is going to be considered as the parent. Inside A, if you have any B inside the subtree of A, that's going to be selected, right? This B doesn't need to be the immediate child. Now that is an important part. So let me show you. For example, let's say this is your A tag. Let's say this is your A selector. When I say A, this can be any selector A. Now, because we know everything is represented in the form of a tree, let's say we have a node here, and let's say we have a node here. Okay. And let's say we have one more node here. Okay. Let's say we have one more node here. Okay. Cool. Let's say we have a B here, and let's say we have a B here altogether. Now, when you say A space B, then it is going to select this particular B as well and this particular B as well. So any B that is present in the subtree of A, anywhere in the subtree of A, all of those B are going to be selected using the descendant selector. So it's going to select any B that is present in the subtree of A. So it selects all B inside A. B is called the descendant because it is another element. Okay. For example, let's see. Select the apple on the plate. So you can see we have an apple that is directly present on the table, and we have an apple that is present on a plate. So if you carefully see, there is this apple tag and there is this plate tag inside which we have the apple. So what you can do is you want to select an apple inside the plate, right? So you say plate space apple. And the moment you press enter, we are through level 5 as well, right? So that's how you actually learn it. That's how you actually learn it. And you can do the descendant selector combination with IDs, classes, and types directly. For example, if you carefully see, we want to select the pickle on the fancy plate. Now, there is a normal plate also which has a pickle. There is a fancy plate also which has a pickle. How do we know this plate is fancy? Because it has a ID fancy. Now, on the fancy plate, we have to pick the pickle tag. How do you do this? You say hashtag fancy. And then on the fancy plate, we have to pick the pickle tag. You press enter and you can see we are through. So that's how we are going to actually use the descendant selector altogether. Let me take up some questions. How was your Scotland tour? It was nice. I'm yet to post a couple of days on that, so that's going nice. Okay, it's going to start next week. We'll be initially having some JavaScript revision classes, and post that the React part will start. So in your advanced backend course, in which project you are using different database to different microservices. So in the Uber project, we are going to start with the Uber project in the advanced backend course. There we will be using Redis DB separately for managing geolocation database. If you don't want a Redis cache-based geolocation database, you can change it to, let's say, PostGIS for a PostgreSQL based database along with MongoDB. So that will be multiple database being connected all together. Anybody having any questions? Okay, it's a fun and nice game. So you can, I will like just post this in the chat so that you guys have context on this. Okay, cool. So I'll just quickly write about the descendant selector. Descendant selector. Okay, so in the descendant selector, if we want to select any element inside the DOM subtree of other element, we can use descendant selector. We can use the descendant selector. Okay, so how do you use it? It's used kind of like a space b, a space b. Okay, a space b. So what is the meaning of a space b? A space b refers, that any b that is present inside the subtree of a, any b that is present inside the subtree of a and b can be ID selectors or type selectors, or you can say tag selectors. Okay, this is something that we have to refer to, and this is what we mean. This is technically what we mean. Okay, this is what I mean, that any b which is present inside a, we are going to select that using the descendant selector altogether. Okay, so that's the second type of selector. And now you can see we have class selector again, which is pretty basic. Class selector is pretty basic altogether. You just say select elements by their class name. Dot class name is coming up, right? And you can see we have to select all the small apples. So small apples have a class small. How do you do this? You say dot small, and that's it. We are through. So that's your class selector as well. Okay. So these are some of the selectors that are pretty basic one. And from here, we are going to see some advanced use cases of selector. मेरा एक क्वेश्चन था कि अगर डाउट होंगे तो लाइव बैच बताने के लिए होगा. डेविल कोडर, यस इट्स अ लाइव बैच, तो डाउट्स क्लास में ही सॉल्व हो रहे होंगे. Lalit Rod, this is going to start kind of like this week. So for the first 2-3 weeks, we are going to have revision of JavaScript, so that we understand all the advanced part of JavaScript thoroughly. And post that, we are going to start with React. So the live class will start probably this week. Any questions, anybody, as of now? Cool. Now let's see. We can even combine the selectors. You can see we can combine the class selector. You can do a dot class name. What is the meaning of a dot class name? You can combine the class selector with any other selector like the type selector. So if you do ul dot important, then it will select all the ul elements that have a class important. So if you just say dot important, then it will select all the important classes. But if you say ul dot important, then it will only select those unordered lists which has an important class, right? For example, if you carefully see, we have to select the small oranges. This is a small orange and this is a small orange. Okay. Now you can see we have a small orange here and we have a small orange here. But the small class is also present with apple. Can you see? The small class is present with apple also. The small class is present with orange also. We only want those oranges which are having small class. So how do you do it? You say the orange tag which has a small class, we are going to select, and you can see we are through again. Okay, so you can see it's a very interesting game to actually understand things all together, right? Now select all the small oranges in the bentos. Okay, you can see you have to select this small orange and this small orange. You can see you have a bento inside which you want an orange with a small tag, and you have this bento with orange small tag. So what do we want? We want to have a bento. We want to have all the oranges inside a bento. So I say bento space orange, but we do not want any orange. We only want those oranges which has a small class. We press enter, and you can see we are through level 9 as well. Isn't that pretty cool? I've created a chat application using Socket.io, Redis, Kafka, PostgreSQL. Many people are saying that why you use PostgreSQL. The technology I've used are highly scalable or not. Okay, I have a similar question. Why do you want to use PostgreSQL for a chat app? You would like to use a RDBMS where you have a use case for an RDBMS, like you have a very, I would like you want to show the relational data. You are going to have a very normalized data. The data is going to have a lot of structure, and you might want to do a lot of joins and everything. Like if you just have users and the users have their chat inside a chat room, even a NoSQL could have worked properly, right? First thing. So also, like you have used Redis and Kafka, you need to tell why you have used it. Just let just let me tell you one thing, Aditya. Using a technology in your project doesn't make it scalable automatically. You need to have a reason to use it. Otherwise, there will be other, I would say, cases where it can create problems. Like until unless you are at a scale where you want to use Kafka, you should not use Kafka. Like uh, the scale at which Kafka starts handling things comes after a long time. Like, so do you have a reasoning why you want to use Kafka, and which particular flow of your whole application is handled by Kafka? Why do you need Redis altogether? So these are a couple of questions that I will also ask you. That why the technologies that you have used are of course highly scalable. Like you know that they are highly scalable, but do you have a reasoning to use them? That's my question. Why you used PostgreSQL? Do you have enough relational data, or a NoSQL could have worked better for you? Think about it. Uh, so if you don't even know HTML, CSS Devil, then we'll be providing kind of like a revision set of lectures recorded. You have to watch that. Those won't be covered, I would say, live. Devil coder. Okay. Because we are going to start with advanced JS and then pick up React. We don't want to spend too much time on HTML, CSS altogether. Make sense? Hi, wanted to ask if you contest. I didn't get your question. Being wide. If you give contest. Now I do not give it because I don't get enough time. Contest सुबह सुबह होता है और अब जॉब करने के साथ सुबह तो नहीं उठ पा रहा हूँ मैं. So, but if you are in college, you should definitely spend some time in giving contests. They are very interesting and very, I would say, gives you a competitive edge, I would say. So, yeah. Cool. Now, the next type of selectors that you have are comma combinator. The next type of selectors that you have are comma combinator. Okay. So if you do A comma B, we just saw what is A space B. Now if you do A comma B, then this selects all A and B elements. So if you want to select multiple elements together, then you do a comma. Let's say you want to select a P tag also, a div tag also, and let's say a span tag with an ID test. Three things you want to select together. So you do piece, comma, div, comma, hash test. Okay, something like this. So for example, you need to select all the plates and bentos. Okay, all the plates we need to select and bentos. So you can see we have a plate tag and we have a bento tag. So you say plate, comma, bento. We don't want to select a bento inside a plate. No, we want to select all the plates and the bentos. Like we have to select multiple elements together. And you can see we are through again. So the streak looks good. We have answered 9 questions correctly. Now, the next type of selector is the universal selector. Using this, you can select everything. And that's a pretty simple one, star. So select all the things. If you have to select everything on your HTML page, you just put a star and that's your universal selector. But with universal selector, there are some good combinations that can come up. So you can see combine the universal selector. Okay. So you can see select everything on a plate. Now, if you have the plate tag, you say plate space star. Plate space star means space is what? Descendant combinator. And plate is the parent. So if you have to select everything inside a plate, you say plate space star. So everything inside a plate will get selected. Okay, you can see plate has this orange, plate has this pickle, plate has this apple. So everything inside a plate. So you say plate space star, and this is going to select everything inside a plate. If I press enter, you can see we are good. So we saw different combinations, right? We saw descendant combinator being combined with the universal selector, right? And now you can see there is adjacent sibling selector. So what we saw descendant combinator, that if you have a parent and you want to select anything inside that parent. We saw multiple selector, that if you have to select multiple elements, that will be comma. Now, if you want to select adjacent siblings, that is, two elements have a common parent and they are adjacent sibling. That means one after another. For example, select every plate that select every apple that's next to a plate. Okay, let's see. So you have to select this apple and you have to select this apple. Both of these apples are next to a plate. And can you see? Can you see? This apple and this apple, along with both the plates, have the common parent div. Div is the common parent. That means both of the apples and both of the plates are the children on the same level. That means they are siblings. Inside a tree, if you have children on the same level, they are siblings. So if you want to select both the apples that are adjacent to the plate, you say plate and you do a plus apple. So every apple that is just adjacent to the plate will be selected. And you can see we are through again. Okay. But if let's say you do not want just immediate adjacent sibling, you want any sibling. Now, one parent, if let's say I show you, let's say if you carefully see something like this. Okay, let's say you have one more child of A here. Okay, let's call it as C. Okay, now you can see B, C, and let's call it as, let's say, H. B, H, and C, these all are your siblings. Okay, all of these are siblings. B, H, C are siblings because they are on the same level. Now B, H are adjacent, H, C are adjacent, but B and C are not adjacent. B and C are not adjacent. So let's say if you want to select generally any sibling like B and C also, that's not necessarily adjacent. You do a tilde here. You can see there is a tilde that comes up instead of plus. For example, select the pickles beside the bentos. So now you can see bento will be having a pickles, but these two pickles are this one pickle is not immediate adjacent to it. Okay, so what you can do is you can say bento and you can put a tilde and you can say a pickle. You press enter and again we are through, right? So this is a pretty interesting part. Now, one of the most commonly used selector we have, that is the child selector. That means we saw descendant combinator, that if there is a, let's say, parent A, if there is, let's say, a parent A, this parent A, and any children in the subtree of A. not immediate. You can see this B as well and this B as well. This B is not the immediate child, but we can still select it using the descendant combinator space. But let's say if you just want to select the immediate child, you want to select the immediate child, then you can do A angle bracket B, right? This will select the B immediately inside A. For example, if you want to select apple that is directly on the plate, you will say plate angle bracket apple. This will select the apple that is just directly present on the plate. Why? Because you see, on the first plate, you first have a bento, and then on that bento, you have an apple. So this apple is not the immediate child of this plate. Whereas here, this apple and this plate are immediate child and parent. The moment I press enter, you can see we are through 14 levels. We are through in one shot. Now, some more selectors. For example, you can see the first child pseudo selector. This is going to select the first child element inside another element. Okay. So if let's say there are multiple children, you want to select the first child. You want to select the first child inside another element. You can do that. For example, you can see this is the plate and this is the first orange inside the plate. Can you see? This is the first orange inside the plate. So you can say plate colon first child. Okay. Now, here instead of plate, we should say orange. We should say technically orange, right? Here we go. You can see we are through again level 15 as well. Only child selector selects an element that are the only element inside another one. So if you have the only single element child, then you will do only child. For example, select the apple and the pickle on the plates. Okay. So you have to select an apple and a pickle. You can see this is the apple and this is the pickle. So you can say apple colon only child, comma, pickle colon only hyphen child. Okay, let's see. We have the first error for our series. Let's see, only hyphen child. Select the span element that are the only child of some other element. So we have to select the apple and the pickle. So we have a comma here. Is there any spelling mistake I have done? Da-da-da. Let us quickly check. This is the apple that we want to select, and this is the pickle. Is the spelling correct? This spelling is correct. Let's see. Oh, okay. Now, interesting thing. One more interesting thing. Can you see? This pickle is also present inside the bento. So if I do pickle colon only child, then it will be a problem because then this pickle will also be selected. Both of these pickles will be selected, right? Whereas if you carefully see apple colon only child, if you do apple colon only child, you have the apple inside the plate. You can see you have the apple inside the plate. Okay. So one interesting thing that we can also do is, let's say we say plate angle bracket apple, comma, plate angle bracket pickle. Okay, here we are not using the only child, I would say pseudo selector, but let's see what happens. You can see we are through. So it's not mandatory that you use the same selector that is mentioned. You can even use other selectors as well. But my point being that you have different type of selectors. Now, just like the first child selector, you have the last child selector as well. Okay, for example, you have to select the small apple and the pickle. You can see this pickle and the small apple. So if you see the pickle is the last child of the div. So you say pickle colon last hyphen child. That any pickle which is the last child of its parent. And what do we want to select? We want to select this apple. So we can say we have an apple on the plate. So plate angle bracket apple. And you can see we are through again. And just like the first child and the last child, you have the nth child as well. That means if let's say you want to select the third plate, so you can say plate colon nth hyphen child, and you can pass the value 3. Moment you press enter, you can see we have selected the nth child as well. Okay, and you can do nth child from the start, or you can do nth child from the last. You can also do the nth child from last. Both of the things should actually work for you. Right, so you can see pretty cool set of selectors we have here, everybody. Basic HTML CSS is enough to start with you. Advanced, I have strong command in programming. Can you tell the roadmap in short? I have uploaded a video on the roadmap devil coder. You can check the last video. You will find the context there. I've already uploaded a video on the roadmap. Like, just check the last video on the channel. Okay. Any more questions, anybody? So try to play this game. Try to play this game. It's a pretty fun game. In the live only, like in this part only, we completed 19 levels. Maybe we can have one more part where we can play the remaining. How many are left? Remaining 11 levels also we can play. But this is kind of like a very fun game I found to learn CSS selectors. So try it out, and maybe we can meet in some next set of lectures. Till then, take care, guys. Bye bye. Have a great week ahead. It was fun coming back live. I'm planning more live sessions in the upcoming set of weeks. So see you soon, guys. Also, some interesting interview series is also coming up. We are going to do some mock interviews, some system design mock interviews, some DSA mock interviews, some machine coding mock interviews. So some interesting part is going to come up live on the channel. So stay tuned for that, and let's meet soon in the next session. Bye bye, guys. Take care. Have a good day.